Hey there, I'm Sarah Kent, and this is a quick recap on our comedy improv lesson of the week, starting with the principle yes and. Yes and is how you greet everything when it comes to doing comedy improv games or sketches. Essentially, and very basically, it just means that you're responding with an attitude of yes and I'm adding to this because you come from a place of value that you have something to bring to the party. So, for example, we could be doing a game where we're going around in a circle telling a very simple story, and then each person in line is going to add to that story. And for starters, when you're beginning to learn comedy improv, then we really hone in on the rules, which the rules of comedy improv are more like guidelines, if you remember Pirates of the Caribbean. But at the beginning, I think it's important to treat the rules as though they are the commandments that you're sticking to. And then as you learn them and you're comfortable with them, things get a little more loosey goosey and we go with the flow. So, for example, again, going back to the game of going around the room and everyone's going to build on a story, it could start with the first person saying, I went to the zoo and saw a unicorn. First sentence. Next person could say, yes, and the unicorn looked right at me with spooky eyes. Next person could say, yes, and I looked right back at him with even spookier eyes. It really doesn't matter. What matters is we have the premise, the first sentence or the first idea. Next person, yes, and. Next person, yes, and we're building on this. Now, as we're doing or learning this principle, there's a lot of different ways in a classroom setting that you can pound it into your head and exercise it out. The one that I just gave is probably the most obvious because you're going to see or be feel required that everything you're greeting is with a yes and. That's how you're greeting and receiving everything. Yes and. Now it comes from, I believe, a fundamental place that's in each one of us. This is my philosophy, that you know that you have value, that you know you have something to bring to the party, and what you're bringing to life and to the party is in a unique, valuable way that nobody else can quite do it like you. So that's why you're greeting everything with a yes and, because you can take it and you can add to it. Now, if each one of us come to, we'll say like a sketch improv game with that attitude of yes and, just imagine of how much it builds on each other because we're just greeting each other with yes, and I've got this, yes, and I've got that, yes, and I'm going to build with this. So another game that we played was building a house, for example. And with this one, it's the idea of building a house with objects that you typically would not find to build a house. So we have a suggestion from the audience of vegetables. Yes, and we're going to use carrots as we build the house, and I'll put the door right here. And then my partner in the scene is going to say, yes, and I am going to do the wall here with cucumbers that I've sliced thinly for this. And I think you get the idea of what we're building on. So I hope that's helpful. And there will be more principles coming up. Until next week, we'll see you around.